Have you ever prayed and felt like the heavens were silent? You cry out day after day. You read your Bible. You attend church. You do everything you know to do. But deep down, you feel disconnected from God. You wonder, Lord, where are you? Why can't I hear your voice? Why does my spirit feel so dry? You try harder. You sing louder in worship. You say longer prayers. You listen to more sermons. But nothing changes. Friend, what if the barrier isn't that God is ignoring you, but that your spirit has grown too crowded to hear Him? What if the breakthrough you've been begging for, the clarity you've been searching for, the chains you've been fighting to break, are all waiting on the other side of something we almost never talk about anymore? It's called fasting, not as a religious ritual, not as a starvation diet, but as a spiritual weapon hidden in plain sight. A secret Jesus Himself practiced and expected His followers to walk in. And I promise you, when you understand the hidden power of fasting, it can change everything. Let me tell you a story. There was a young man named Daniel. No, not the prophet. This was a modern-day Daniel, a believer who had been in church all his life. He knew the right verses. He could quote Psalm chapter 23 in his sleep. But when his life fell apart, his faith began to crumble. Daniel lost his job. His marriage was hanging by a thread. And worst of all, he couldn't feel God's presence anymore. He would wake up in the morning, sit in his chair with his Bible, and the words felt empty. He prayed, but it felt like his prayers bounced off the ceiling. One night, completely exhausted, he knelt down in his living room and said, God, I don't even know what else to say. I need you. Please, show me what to do. And in the quiet, a thought dropped into his mind. Turn your plate over. He didn't fully understand what it meant at first, but somehow, deep in his spirit, he knew. God was calling him to fast. Now, Daniel had heard about fasting before. He'd read about it in Matthew chapter 6, where Jesus said, when you fast, not if. But he'd never actually done it seriously. A part of him thought, what difference would skipping food make? But something about this moment felt different. He decided to obey. The first day was hard. By lunchtime, his stomach growled so loud it almost embarrassed him. By evening, the smell of food from his neighbor's kitchen felt like torture. But something unexpected happened. As his body became weaker, his prayers became stronger. It was as if every physical hunger pang was an alarm, a reminder to turn his heart toward God, to lean in closer. On the second day, he opened his Bible and suddenly the words came alive. It was like he could feel God's heartbeat in the scriptures. On the third day, in the stillness, he heard God's whisper. Not an audible voice, but a clear, undeniable impression. Daniel, you've been feeding your body but starving your spirit. I've been here all along. Now, you can hear me. Tears filled his eyes. It wasn't just about food. It was about making space for God. Let's pause Daniel's story for a moment and talk about why fasting is such a hidden weapon in the spiritual life. First, understand this. Fasting is not about earning God's favor. It's not about punishing yourself. It's about positioning your heart to receive from Him. Jesus Himself fasted before starting His ministry. He went into the wilderness for 40 days, fasting and praying. Why? Because the mission ahead of Him required spiritual clarity, authority, and unshakable focus. Moses fasted when he went up Mount Sinai to receive the 10 Commandments. Esther called for a fast before approaching the king to save her people. Daniel fasted to seek understanding from God about visions he had seen. In each of these moments, fasting wasn't an empty ritual. It was a way of saying, God, you matter more than my comfort. Your voice is my food. Your presence is my survival. Biblical principle 1, fasting starves the flesh and strengthens the spirit. Galatians chapter 5 talks about the war between the flesh and the spirit. The flesh wants comfort, pleasure, control. The spirit wants obedience, holiness, surrender. When we fast, we tell our flesh, you're not the boss anymore. Biblical principle 2, fasting clears spiritual static. You ever tried to listen to the radio, but there's too much static to hear the music? That's how our spiritual life can feel when we're overloaded, with food, entertainment, social media, endless noise. Fasting turns down the volume of the world so we can hear the whisper of God. Biblical principle 3, fasting prepares you for spiritual battle. In Matthew chapter 17, the disciples couldn't cast out a demon. Jesus told them, "This kind does not go out except by prayer and fasting." There are some spiritual chains in your life, in your family, that won't break with ordinary prayer. They require fasting. But here's the thing. Fasting without prayer is just dieting. If you fast and don't pray, you've only starved your body. But if you fast and pray, you've fed your soul. Ayos, let's go back to Daniel. By the end of his 7-day fast, he didn't just get his job back. He didn't just feel emotionally better. He had something far greater, a renewed intimacy with God. He realized the real reward of fasting isn't answered prayers. It's God Himself. There's a moment in fasting when you stop longing for the thing you gave up and start longing for the one you gave it up for. Daniel reached that point. On the 4th day, as he knelt on his bedroom floor, he whispered, "God, I don't even care if you fix my problems right now. I just want you." And in that moment, the presence of God filled the room. It wasn't loud. It wasn't dramatic, but it was holy. The tears came, not because life was suddenly perfect, but because his soul had been reawakened. He realized fasting was never about twisting God's arm to do what He wanted. It was about God opening His eyes to see what truly mattered. Friend, sometimes the miracle is not in the outcome, but in the transformation fasting works inside of you. Maybe right now you're in a dry place. Maybe your prayers feel like they're going nowhere. Maybe there's a battle you've been fighting for years. Addiction, fear, bitterness, lust, depression, and nothing seems to break it. What if God is calling you to fast? You don't have to start with 40 days in the wilderness. Start with 1 meal, then a day, then 3 days. Every time your stomach growls, let it remind you, "My hunger is for God." As Jesus said in Matthew chapter 4, verse 4, "Man shall not live by bread alone, but by every word that proceeds from the mouth of God." Reflection questions for you. What is taking up the space in your life where God's voice should be? Are you willing to lay aside physical comfort for spiritual clarity? Do you believe God is worth more than your daily routine? Friend, fasting is not easy. It will stretch you. It will humble you. It will reveal parts of your heart you didn't know were there. But it will also draw you into the deepest place of intimacy with God you've ever known. The hidden power of fasting is not in the hunger you feel. It's in the hunger it creates. For Him, take the step. Turn your plate over. Shut the door. Pray. Seek Him. And watch as the God who seemed silent begins to speak again.